Hey everybody, welcome to the Healthy Living Revolution Live. My name is Jake Kelly and I'm an NMD with the Juice Plus company. The Healthy Living Revolution is a movement of people who are taking healthy back, and we're offering this series to bring some simple solutions and simple education. Our speaker for this episode is Dr. Mitra Ray. I'll read you a little bit of a bio on her and then she'll take it away. Dr. Mitra Ray is on a mission to help people take healthy back. She wants to help those people who want to look and feel their best and dance at their grandchildren's wedding. She received her electrical engineering degree from Cornell and her Ph.D. in biochemistry from Stanford Medical School, and her Ph.D. was given to her by Lubert Stryer, who wrote the biochemistry textbook used in medical schools worldwide. She has been a student of health for over 31 years. Her book, Do You Have the Guts to Be Beautiful, was featured in Women's Health magazine and available on Amazon. She and her husband, Doug, live in Washington and are the proud parents of two healthy, beautiful girls. Thank you, Dr. Mitra Ray.
Thanks for that introduction, Jake. I also wanted to share that in my journey of trying to understand diet and nutrition, I really had no previous bias. Because I lost my father to his second heart attack and my mother to Alzheimer's, my inquiry into health had more to do with my own personal stake in staying healthy, optimally healthy, hopefully. My father loved children, and he died 2 months before his first grandchild was born. And that was my first daughter, so that was hard. And I didn't want my children to have to face those kinds of realities as I aged. Thus, I have to say that I've tried every diet in the book, including a ketogenic diet. And I both experienced those diets, but I also subjected my poor family to those diets, and I also spent a lot of time reading the science papers behind the thinking behind these kinds of diets. And it's kind of an obsession of mine, really. And I have a highly analytical mind, but I'm also a practical mother, raising two very active children, and one of whom is an elite competitive athlete. So I'm willing to look at anything. And so if you look at the ketogenic diet, basically, it depends on what website you're reading and what kind of recommendations people are making about it. But in general, it's a high-fat diet. 75% of your calories are supposed to come from fat, 20% from protein, and only 5% from carbohydrates. So one of the better sites that I saw talked about, those carbohydrates being less than 5% of your calories coming from processed carbohydrates. And that I'm in total agreement with because processed carbohydrates feed your cancer cells, they raise triglycerides and LDL, which is considered to be the bad cholesterol, as it can get oxidized, which makes it sticky and clog your arteries. So I'm all about this recommendation that 5% of your calories come from processed carbohydrates. Now, when you look at the Shred10 program, it's really more of a lifestyle program. It's not really about counting calories or percentages. So it involves using the Juice Plus products for 4 months, and while you're doing that, you have the option to do this 10-day shred where you're also taking on lifestyle challenges. So that involves drinking plenty of water, and here I show a picture of a little girl drinking the water because even a child can do the Shred10 program. You also want to sleep 7 to 8 hours, exercise most days, while you eliminate gluten and dairy, because these are the two most inflammatory foods, while you're also eliminating caffeine and alcohol. We all know that those aren't good for you. Processed foods, we talked about that, and artificial refined sugars, and eating after 6 p.m. so that your body follows more of a circadian rhythm. Now, as far as processed carbohydrates go, we are actually even more strict with the Shred10 program because we're looking for 0% of the calories coming from processed carbohydrates. Now, it's not required that you do this challenge, but if you do it, you're going to get additional benefits on top of the clinically validated results that people see by using the Juice Plus products. And besides the 10 days, you continue to take the Juice Plus products with less strict guidelines, and that's sort of the live it part. So you shred it and then you live it, and then hopefully you share it because you get some great results. Now back to the ketogenic diet. When we look at these percentages, these are percentages of macronutrients. So we're talking proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. So I want to discuss carbohydrates. Now, recently a movie came out on Netflix called What the Health? And some of you may have seen this movie that promotes basically a plant-based diet. And so I've received a lot of questions about this. And the basic premise of the movie is quite accurate. Their description of all carbohydrates being okay, I do take issue with. This is the biggest point of contention between the two camps, actually, whether you're talking about a high-fat kind of diet, which only comes from, you can only do a high-fat diet, like 75% of your calories, by including animal products. And then the vegan lifestyle, which is all carbohydrates, but sometimes that means any carbohydrates. And as you know, there are many different kinds of carbohydrates. So generally speaking, it's important for us to understand our carbohydrates. Generally speaking, when people are discussing the word carbs, they are in the high fat camp, meaning they're talking about processed foods such as cereals, pastas, cookies, crackers. There's a picture of yogurt here with some kind of weird fruity additive, and the breads and the pastries, etc. However, there is a wide spectrum of carbohydrates out there to choose from, and some of them are actually very good for us, and we should really include them, such as the green and non-starchy vegetables, the whole grains, rice, quinoa, millet, tapioca, semolina, the starchy vegetables, and our fruits. The bad carbohydrates are the soda pops, the sweet drinks. I actually see diet soda often recommended with ketogenic diets, despite the evidence that research shows that artificial sweeteners increase the risk of obesity by almost 50%. So diet sodas in my book are out. Also the fried foods, the highly processed grains such as gluten. Now, gluten is something, if you eliminate from your diet, you will get results. That comes from wheat, rye, and barley. So I would say that if 100% of your calories came from the left side, that would actually be ideal. So why do I say that? Because when you eat, the main point of eating is to actually raise your blood sugar. The light blue curve here represents probably the impetus for people moving toward a ketogenic diet, because it's way too easy for us in our society to choose those breads and pastas that I was talking about, those processed carbs that are high glycemic foods. So in the light blue curve, you eat that food and your blood sugar goes way up, something that is not in our physiology to do. It's not normal for our blood sugar to go up. Then the insulin kicks in and tries to manage that situation so that a couple of hours later your blood sugar drops drastically, and that's when you're just in a bad mood. You hate everybody and you're just in a bad mood. Now, if you were to eat the kale instead, that's shown in this picture, then your blood sugar would go up as it's meant to go up after a normal meal with lots of plants, and that would give you the blood sugar that you need for your brain to function and your muscles to function. So this is what we actually want to do when we eat. In addition to that, most of the government agencies around the world are telling us that more matters, because we used to have a recommendation of eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, then it went to 9 to 13, and now the slogan is more matters, because you can hardly argue with the fact that eating a wide variety of plants is going to be good for you because of the antioxidants, because of the phytonutrients, the fiber, the starches that are really, really good for you. And this is really the objective of the Shred10 program, is to help people neutralize or stabilize their blood sugar and create this natural desire to eat more plant-based foods, so that you have the nutrients you need to build and repair tissue. This is very, very important, that you need these plant nutrients to build and repair tissue. So if you're talking about a plant-based diet, people generally ask the question, where would I get my protein? Because people don't think of plants when they're talking about, I need my protein. So let's take a objective look at this situation. Let's look at equal parts of tomatoes, spinach, lima beans, peas, and potatoes, and compare it to equal parts of beef, pork, chicken, and whole milk. So what you see here is that both the plant-based foods and the animal-based foods have about the same amount of protein. The plants also have 4 grams of omega fats, which is what you're really looking for. The animal-based foods now have 9 times more fat. This is including the saturated fat. Animals don't make omegas, by the way. And they also is the only source of cholesterol. The plants, on the other hand, are a source of all these micronutrients that your body's really looking for, as well as fiber. Now, why is fiber so important? It's because we are actually not just human beings, we are human superorganisms. So let's take a minute to understand that only 10% of your cells are human cells. The rest are bacteria, fungi, and protozoa. And we need to think about feeding this other 90% of the population that lives inside you. So what do we feed them? A ketogenic diet or a whole food plant-based diet? If you look at the Human Microbiome Project, one of the things we learned is that we are missing a lot of microbes. The Human Microbiome Project, let's say with the US population, when you compare it to nomadic tribes that still live in South America and Africa, we see that they have a far greater variety of microbes, and we have just lost that in our Western world. And so Dr. Eric Alm, associate professor at MIT, did a very interesting experiment where he looked at a year's worth of, basically poop samples and tried to correlate it with over 300 different lifestyle factors, including different, nutrients in the diet. And the only thing that actually affected the microbiome drastically was fiber. Actually, most of these other factors didn't make any bit of difference, but if you ate 10 grams more fiber today, you would increase the abundance of bacteria in your body that are going to help you digest your food and make sense of your body by 11%. So this is an important thing to consider. So when we talk about carbohydrates, one thing to really understand is the food on the left-hand side gives you fiber. It gives your body micronutrients, and it's really prebiotics, that is food for your good bacteria. On the right-hand side is parasite food. And also the Juice Plus products have fiber in them. For instance, the complete shakes, each serving has 8 grams of fiber and also a nice mixture of resistant starches. And the reason you need these is because the bacteria then break them down and give you critical nutrients such as small chain fatty acids that you can't make and you can't really eat. You need the bacteria to make these for you at the right time, at the right place. So let's get back to this graph. On the ketogenic diet, there's not much discussion of phytonutrients, fiber, there's no distinction between carbohydrates or omega fats. On the right-hand side, we're ideally trying to head towards 100% of our calories coming from plants for those 10 days. And hopefully that will help you change out the bacteria, and your cravings will change, and you will want more plants more often. And that way you're going to get the protein that your body needs. And by the way, there's no such thing as ideal protein, because if you combine a lot of plants, different plants together, you get all the amino acids that your body needs. You get the complex carbohydrates that you need for your muscles and brain to function. You get the omega fats that your brain needs to function, as well as the complex carbohydrates. You get the phytonutrients that help slow down the aging process and fight things like cancer in your body, and you get the fiber and the non-resistant starches that feed your bacteria. So why then do we even have a ketogenic diet? Well, there's some history behind it. In the 1920s, they discovered that a ketogenic diet could block basically the central nervous system, because the central nervous system really operates on sugar, and it could be a therapeutic way to deal with epilepsy. And in the 1960s, they started to realize it also helps with obesity, because your fat cells also can burn fat as a source of energy. So if you restricted carbohydrates in the diet, these are the two situations that could be helped by a ketogenic diet. Now, today, is this really our only option to deal with epilepsy and obesity? I don't think so, because if you were to try the Shred10 program, and there's also some plant medicines that can help with epilepsy, really shown to help with epilepsy and also with obesity. I think just if your only objective is to lose weight, sure, a ketogenic diet might work. But what about the rest of the body and how it functions? So, why do we even have the capacity to burn ketones? Let's look at that. We have this for two emergency situations. One is sickness, because when you get sick, you're supposed to stop trying to work, stop trying to do any kind of aerobic activity, and just lay down and rest. You get tired and you lose your appetite when you're sick, so your body can rest and heal. The other is starvation. As we migrated away from the equator in the winter months, we would run out of carbohydrates because we'd run out of plants, and then we'd go into ketosis. Now, do we really want to go into this emergency mode as a way of, like normally living this way? That's a question you're going to have to ask yourself. I actually did complete starvation twice with a water fasting, and water fasting is interesting because it can heal the body, but don't confuse water fasting with a ketogenic diet where you're still consuming all these calories from a source of fat. Now, let's look at normal physiology. We have the capacity to break down lipids, carbohydrates, and proteins as a source of energy. But mostly carbohydrates is what we use as a source of energy normally. So what are we doing normally? We're eating, we're sleeping, sometimes we're resting, sometimes we're exercising moderately, sometimes we're exercising intensely, sometimes we're learning, sometimes we're involved in the creative process, and we want to perform at work. So yes, we have all these sources of energy, and we can burn them we can even burn fat, and burning fat yields more energy as far as creating molecules of ATP than sugar. That's true. That may be why so many people are attracted to the idea that if I consume a high-fat ketogenic diet, this will give me more energy. But it's not a food in and energy out simplistic equation. We do different activities during the day, and these different cells and organs have different roles to play, and they utilize different pathways. One overall main goal through all this is to maintain your blood sugar levels. The body works very hard, in fact, to maintain even levels of blood sugar. You just have to look at how much of the body chemistry is designed to stabilize your blood sugar, including that insulin curve that I showed you earlier. If you eat too many processed carbohydrates, it's all about trying to manage the blood sugar. And it doesn't like to get sick or go into prolonged starvation. But I can appreciate that people are promoting the ketogenic diet because people are desperate. They're getting fat, they're getting sick. And, when you look at the advertising, it makes sense. Now, one of the sites says your body has zero requirements for dietary carbohydrates. I actually pulled this out from under a YouTube video promoting the ketogenic diet. And this sounds great, but it's misleading and oversimplistic at best. Actually, when it comes to this recommendation, it's just dead wrong because your body definitely has requirements for carbohydrates. I'll get into this. But when you see these other promises like lose 6 to 8 pounds in a week, it sounds good. You become a fat burning machine. That sounds good too. But the body wants to use glucose as a main source of energy. This is glycolysis. This is the first go-to for the body to create energy, and this is what most of the cells in your body want to do. The normal physiology, for instance, for your red blood cells, can only use glucose as a source of energy because they have no mitochondria. Then you've got your central nervous system. It can be trained to use fats, but that's not what it wants to do. And then you've got other cells in the body like the renal medulla of the kidney and the lens of the eyes. This is where your body wants carbohydrates. So when we're making statements like this, it's oversimplistic. And let's talk about the 6 to 8 pounds of weight loss in the first week. Again, almost all the cells in your body have the capacity to burn carbohydrates, and that's the normal function of these cells. We store carbohydrates in the form of glycogen in the liver as well as in the muscles. In fact, your brain is always talking to the liver, like, do I have enough glycogen? Do I have enough glycogen? If you run out of glycogen, basically glycogen is a chain of sugar molecules, then you get hungry and your body, you're supposed to eat. That's how we're designed. Now, the glycogen is heavy. It has water molecules attached to it. So for every 2 pounds of glycogen, we have about 6 to 8 pounds total that we're hanging on to in the form of glycogen. So when you starve yourself of sugar, you're going to use up all this glycogen, including the water attached to the glycogen. So you're going to lose 6 to 8 pounds. You're not really losing. This is not good weight loss at all. Not only that, you're going to go into creating glucose, something called gluconeogenesis, where you're going to break down protein to make sugar for your red blood cells. This means loss of lean mass. This also means you cannot grow and repair tissue. And you also reduce your capacity to burn fat because you slow down your metabolism with less lean mass. So this is not a great long-term proposal if you ask me. So if you look at the comparisons thus far, both are talking about less processed carbs, but your brain, your red blood cells, your liver, they're not going to function very well with ketones. In fact, your red blood cells are not going to work at all. And your red blood cells are involved in bringing oxygen to your body and taking carbon dioxide away. You don't want to not have that function working for you. So what happens is that you're going to break down tissue, and so it's certainly not safe for pregnancy, nursing, or kids. You can't grow on a ketogenic diet, and you certainly can't thrive on a ketogenic diet. Whereas on Shred10, all your cells will thrive, including your microbiota, and it's safe for pregnant and nursing moms and children. Now, I want to talk about a friend of mine who is an avid athlete, and he is also a triathlete, and he recently went on a ketogenic diet for 3 months. And he tried to do the more plant-based version of it, which still involves eggs. So he was eating 4 eggs a day in order to get that amount of fat that you're looking for in a ketogenic diet. And he suddenly had a heart attack during his last triathlon. So that is you can guess what might have happened. My take on it is, as a biochemist, like, eggs are known to be almost as bad for you as cigarettes. Now, this is a study that came out in 2012 and immediately was under attack, like, of course the study wasn't done right, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of critics about this study, but here's the thing I want you to understand. The animal-based foods are your only source of cholesterol and a huge source of saturated fat. You just can't, there's no cholesterol in plants, and you don't have this high amount of saturated fat in plants. So your arteries have to deal with this extra animal fat that is now suddenly in your blood. And it is a well-known fact that even a single high-fat meal raises triglycerides. And this is a study done by Plotnick and Vogel. It is a seminal study on what happens after a high-fat meal, and this study was actually done with eggs in the diet. And the other thing that happens is that your arteries are challenged so that you don't have vasodilation. Normally, after a meal, like if you have high blood pressure or if you're engaged in athletic activity, your arteries are supposed to dilate so blood can be pumped in faster into the body. Your blood rushes at like 90 miles an hour through your arteries if you're in the middle of a triathlon, for instance. So, once again, if you're eating a high-fat diet, you lose this function of your arteries. So to me, it's not a mystery why 4 eggs a day might give you a heart attack while you're trying to do a triathlon. In fact, I found these actually on the sites, the other 6 most common problems that can happen. You induce a flu. Why? Because when you have the flu, you induce ketosis. So when you induce ketosis, you're going to induce a flu-like symptoms. You're going to have leg cramps. Why? Because your red blood cells are just not functioning properly. Constipation, bad breath, heart palpitation, reduced physical performance. This is actually on a ketogenic website. Other common problems are Of course, you don't want to be breastfeeding. You can create gallstones, lose your hair, elevate cholesterol, reduce your tolerance to alcohol, get a keto rash, and gout. Now, who wants gout during ketosis while you're trying to improve your health, right? And also, it's complicated. You have to use urine strips or breath ketone analyzers or ketone meters to be sure you're in ketosis but not in a danger zone because it could kill you. So I don't know. And there is research showing that yes, you can lose fat, but you're going to lose lean mass. You're going to impair your ability to perform high intensity exercise or mental performance for that matter, reduce levels of glycogen and muscle in the liver. This is not a good long-term plan. And as a biochemist, there's just no way I can support this. Now, I hope you take the time to learn a little bit more about the Shred10 program. I have another video. Write down this URL if you'd like, info.shred10.com. It is a safer way to shed the excess fat for sure. And again, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. During this program, we are going to utilize plant power in the guidelines, and basically when you order the products, we give you a shred guide with all kinds of easy to prepare recipes. You're going to watch that video. We're going to support you, and once you do your first shred, we're going to get you a really great recipe book. And I want to share some stories with you really quickly. Vicky Martini, who's a personal trainer with over 25 years of experience, she says, after being hospitalized for toxic levels of undigested whey protein in my gut, all in the attempt to achieve optimal fitness, I began to seek answers. Excuse me. I have experienced metabolic burnout, high protein ketosis from competing in bodybuilding fitness events, and most recently, adrenal exhaustion. Shred10 has helped save me, my health, and my profession with Juice Plus. Lynn in Indianapolis not only lost 40 pounds in 4 months, she's got off all her meds, including high blood pressure, cholesterol, and diabetes medicines. No more hormonal hot flashes or insomnia. Feels great. Here are two Olympians that really believe in this as a long-term way to maintain their physical fitness. Tim Emmett is somebody you can Google. He's a world famous climber. And he gave me his testimonial. Shred10 is the roadmap I've been looking for to take my climbing to the next level. Since I started it 18 months ago, I turned 40 and climbed my hardest rock and also ice climb of my professional career. So it's not just about weight loss, it's about performance. And when it comes to growth and bone density and lean muscle mass, it's also important to understand that this program can really serve you. This is Bailey's testimonial about her grandmother. 8 months ago, I started my grandma, 84 years old, on Juice Plus caps and shakes. She's on prednisone and has to have bone density scans as it can have an adverse effect. Her GP was absolutely astonished when this year her density had not decreased but had increased by 11%. He had never seen this before in his career and definitely not on a patient in their 80s. The power of plants. So once again, when you look at all the pros and cons, while there might be fat loss, there's also going to be protein breakdown because your body needs to make glucose, so you're going to get lean mass over time. Whereas the Shred10 program has been clinically shown to reduce belly fat and increase lean mass. It has been clinically shown to alter the genes that regulate energy metabolism properly. So it's not that you can't lose weight on a ketogenic diet. It's a question of sustainability, both for you as an individual and even for the planet. While I did lose weight during the ketogenic diet, I could not think clearly or perform at my best. Also, by adopting a more plant-based lifestyle, I have come to learn that if I were a political activist, like an environmentalist or animal rights activist, etc., the single most important decision I have made in my life is to eat whole plants and cut out the animal in the middle between me and my nutrition that my body needs. And I get the added benefit of slowing down the aging process in my body, having strong bones, having great blood work, having hormone functionality, and having tons of energy and saving lots of money. Plants don't cost as much as animal products, even with all the government subsidies that make it illogically affordable for the average person to consume so much animal products. And you know what? In all the archaeological digs, one thing they have never found was a refrigerator. So did we ever consume anything akin to a ketogenic diet with 75% of our calories coming from fatty animal products? A plant-based diet is balanced by design. There is nothing to count, nothing to weigh, and you can feed your microbes because they turn around and feed you important nutrients you cannot get anywhere else unless you feed them fiber and starches. So hopefully, you realize the simplicity of this Shred10 program, because again, there's nothing to count, nothing to weigh. And hopefully you'll consider the simplicity and the savings, not to mention you'll feel good about serving the planet at large while you're serving yourself. Thank you so much for your attention.
Awesome. That was so great. So we encourage you to get back to the person who invited you to watch this webinar to learn more. And thanks again, Dr. Mitra, and thank you all for joining us.